Hello, this is my Crazy Ex channel. Please subscribe.
I cheated on my sweetheart of a husband for 3 years with my violent, abusive ex. This is the one secret I am taking to my grave. Story 1-2. So the plan was to post this in our relationships and ask for advice, but I read through a few similar threads from the archives and people do not take well to cheaters there. So our confession will have to do. Sorry for the throwaway account, but it had to be done. So sorry, but I'm not sorry, I guess. My husband and I are both in our late 20s and we've been married for 5 years and together for 6. We are really happy now, but it hasn't always been like that. My husband is a bit of an introvert, but he is getting better now. When we first got together, he was a very quiet, nerdy guy and he could be charming, but sometimes he got carried away with his hobbies. He was really different than the guys I normally date. Much nicer and more stable. And he loved me for me. Which is an awesome feeling. I didn't realize how lucky I was to have him, and basically from the moment we started dating and until 2 years into our marriage, I was hooking up with an ex. It wasn't an everyday type affair, but when he called me to hang out, I would drop everything and go. I was obsessed with him and I wanted him to love me more than anything. My ex is the most hot cold guy you will meet. He can be so exciting and fun, but he has a dark side like none other. He cheated on me a lot when we were together and we had a few rough fights, so it wasn't a healthy relationship at all. But it was an addicting one. My ex didn't care that I was with my husband, and he knew he had me still. Even after the wedding, that for some stupid reason I invited him to, he still came onto me hard. He would always tell me shitty things about my husband, and he liked being the other guy, as ducked up as that is. It's only now I can realize what a scumbag he was. Basically, the affair happened every couple months when we would hang out or see each other, and it was a mess. I can't believe I was that person. It's so ducked up. The affair is over now, but I'll always be haunted by what I did. I finally ended it when my husband and I decided we wanted to start a family, and my ex refused to listen to me and wear a condom. I was still in the fog with him and wanted him to be happy, but I didn't want to risk anything with my husband. And when he refused, it hit me how little he cared about me and I just woke up. I realize how messed up everything was and I've basically not said a word to him in 3 years come April. My husband doesn't know anything, and I think it would crush him to hear about the affair. I know it's behind me, and I'm committed to being the best wife I can be going forward. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1, TS only now I can realize what a scumbag he was. Basically, the affair happened every couple months when we would hang out or see each other. I got news for you, he wasn't the only scumbag in that relationship. Redditor 2, you're not being fair and you're being selfish. I can tell by the fact that you were basically subservient to a violent, abusive ex that you have had some problems with feeling in control of yourself. I don't doubt that happiness was elusive during this phase of your life and you blindly chased it. You feel like you've made a big realization and will be a different wife from now on. Let me tell you though, your relationship will plateau and never truly work if you're not honest with your husband. You don't get to decide that you're different now and will be the best wife you can be. You need to tell your husband and let him decide. Maybe he'll be understanding and you guys will grow together. It will be hard, and it won't happen immediately, but it will be much better than living a lie. Or maybe he will break up with you. That should be his choice, and if you're worth your salt you'll put it in his hands. Redditor follow up, this dude is right on this account and the fact that Pez is a dumb candy. Redditor 3, you're probably going to cheat on him again because you clearly have no respect for him as a man. It'd probably be best for him if you told him and left him right now. That said, I'm sure you don't give a duck about what's best for him, so if you are going to stay with him then never tell him. Your relationship will never recover and nor will his self-esteem. If the woman I loved and was married to for 3 years told me that, then I'd probably off myself. There's a good chance that he would too. Redditor follow up, I too would probably kill myself. I could never live down such massive disrespect. I would do something drastic. Redditor 4, so you want it both ways, you want to have the addicting time with your scumbag ex but not be in a relationship with him to deal with the other side. And you want to be with a nice guy but cheat on him when he's not good enough for you. Well, you can't have it both ways, and both guys should want nothing to do with you. Why the hell did you even get married if you were ducking a guy basically from the moment we started dating until 2 years into our marriage? You are right about one thing, your husband would be crushed to hear about the affair. That's why cheating is the worst thing you can do to someone. How do you know this lifestyle is behind you, and you are committed from now on to being a good wife, which, BTW, it's too late for that. Redditor follow up, one word, hypergamy http, rationalemail.wordpress.com 2012-03-13 The Hypergamy Conspiracy. She's had her fun, now it's time to become respectable. Except it involves deceiving her husband. At the very least she's not cuckolding him. That's the thinnest frigging silver lining I've ever found. Oh, also notice how she's found herself a fixer-upper for a husband? My husband is a bit of an introvert, but he is getting better now. My blood boiled when I saw that. People are not there to be fixed, like you'd send a dog to obedience school. Gah. Redditor 5. Don't delude yourself into thinking that you are not telling your husband the truth for his benefit. Sure, he would probably be crushed, but in the long run he would have the information he needs to make decisions about his life and whether to stay with him. You are benefiting far more from this lie than him, and your dishonesty about that fact makes me think that you haven't really changed at all. Also, if your husband doesn't know what you did, he doesn't love you for you, he loves you for what he falsely thinks you are. I also think you should be honest with yourself about that fact. I also think you should be honest about the fact that you didn't end the affair, your ex did because he wasn't prepared to wear a condom. You only rationalized it after the fact. Redditor 6. Yeah, you sure realized what a great guy you have. I guarantee you that you will duck this guy again at some point. Why? Because he represents everything your husband isn't. I would bet money he's better looking and oozes cockiness, whereas your husband is timid and is more of a beta male. You're obviously not sorry, which indicates to me that you like ducking the bad boy. It's addicting because he's an extreme alpha male and it creates a high every time you are with him due to a release of dopamine. I'm not saying you should tell your husband, but we both know you will cheat on him again when the opportunity arises because it's obvious you don't respect your husband as a man. There is nothing wrong with this, but the reality is that you married the wrong man. You married a man who likely has little confidence and it bothers you, but you are unable to explain why even in your head. What you need to do is divorce this guy and find a man who has lots of confidence yet is also a good guy. I feel sorry for your husband because of the immense betrayal, but at the same time I'm laughing because your description of him indicates that you think he is pathetic and weak. You married him because he was the safe option, not because you were really attracted to him. As for any guy reading this post, this is what happens when you are an insecure man and have no confidence in yourself. You will marry a woman that will never respect you and will cheat on you. Take this as a warning. Redditor 7. STI testing and counseling, you need both. Redditor 8. I'm going to be the best wife I can be, and I'm going to do that by lying about a 2-year affair I had with my ex. I feel so terrible for your poor husband. I hope he finds the good sense to leave. Redditor 9. He will find out. Don't drag a kid into this. Get some IC before you have the kids. Delay the kids for some more time. You are probably confused, and you are making the same mistake again. Let him decide if he wants to stay with you. Would you stay with someone like you? Redditor 10. Husband is entitled to make an informed decision whether or not to stay with you, howsoever crushing. Redditor 11. You are a terrible person. The reason I don't want to get married is because I think too many women are like you. Redditor 12. Okay, this is her confession. People need to look at the rules more. I know you want to move on with your life, but like you said, this will always be in the back of your head. Can you live with that the rest of your life knowing that? I can't tell you what to do with your life, but I hope you make the right decisions from now on. Redditor follow up. Ironically, I had iTunes on shuffle. Whiskey Lullaby started playing the moment I clicked on the link. Redditor 13. 5 minutes of alpha trumps 5 years of beta. You are an alpha widow. For an alpha widow. Redditor 14. I was obsessed with him and I wanted him to love me more than anything. This reeks of daddy issues. Redditor 15. My ex refused to listen to me and wear a condom. I was still in the fog with him and wanted him to be happy, but I didn't want to risk anything with my husband. Redditor 16. Bullshit. You're going to cheat on him again the next chance you get. Tell him the truth. leave him, and never marry again. Redditor 17, you need to tell him. If you truly love him, he needs to know. Redditor 18, I hope you burn in hell. Redditor follow up, yes. But the real question is, will we go to hell to burn for eternity, or will we really suffer? Redditor 19, as a husband that got cheated on, he will appreciate knowing. Also, he will likely be more driving than you think. Redditor 20, you think you are getting away with this, but one day far in the future you will reflect on your past. You will come to the realization that your whole life is fake, your husband's love isn't for you, it's for the woman you pretend to be. The guilt and despair you will feel will be exponentially greater than now because you will have years of this lie plus children complicating things even more. This will prevent you from ever make amends for what you have done. Story 2-2, my personal story. Yes, it is a real story and discusses my cheating wife and the impact on a lifetime relationship. My question and would like advice, based on this, am I crazy to try this again and is it worthwhile at 60 years of age? I have read a lot of the stories and there are some definite heartbreaking stories that sadden me to read them. My story is also pretty sad, but I do not think that I am able to convey the same level of bitterness and betrayal that some of the other writers and submitters have experienced. My story, of course, is sad but also perhaps gives a different perspective that might be worth listening to. I am not sure why I am writing about events that took place so many years ago, but maybe it is just a way to show people that good things happen with time. And, time and patience does seem to heal most things. I know this is a long post, but I think the history is important to know so people understand what happened. And, that generates my question and request for advice. Based on this, am I crazy to try this again and is it worthwhile at 60 years of age? I met my wife, and we were together for almost 10 years, which includes 7 years of marriage. We have 2 children who are now fully grown and have lives of their own. My wife and I met on a blind date, and it was awkward the entire night. My wife is an attractive woman with a vivacious personality. Me, on the other hand, am somewhat reserved and would not probably be considered as a head-turner. I am not that bad on the eyes, but do not in any way claim to be a great heartbreaker. I am also on the quiet side and my wife always has been the person that people noticed at a party or an event. She also has a kind heart and is very empathetic to people and always looks for the good. Strangely enough, she seemed to like me and our relationship grew. Finally, we got married and began to build our life together. Our life was actually going very well. We had a nice home, good finances, supportive families, good friends, and our kids were doing well. But, as with many of these stories, there is a catalyst that can change everything. Our catalyst was a pregnancy. We had 2 young kids at the time and wanted to go for a 3rd child to have an even larger and happier family. We never had too many concerns in the bedroom, and we quickly had number 3 on the way. I was elated when my wife told me the news and we waited about 3 months before we told the rest of our families about the new addition. During the next 3 months we were busy with planning for the nursery, working with our kids on getting ready for the new baby, looking at finances, etc. It is perhaps the saddest day of my life when my wife called me to tell me that something was wrong with the baby. We got her to the hospital and unfortunately and tragically my wife had a miscarriage at the 6-month mark. We were both traumatized and the trip back home next day was absolute silence and sadness. My wife went to bed that night and did not come out of that room for the next 3 days. She was absolutely overcome with sadness and depression. For some reason she also believed that she had failed me as my wife. I told her again and again that this was an act of God, she did not do anything wrong, and we could try again when the time was right. But, she did not believe me and still continued to blame herself for the whole situation and sunk into a depression. It took about 6 months, but she appeared to be coming out of her funk and seemed to be getting back to her normal self. We were both doing well with the kids, she seemed to have her personality back, and we were talking about the future. She also started to exercise and get back into shape. She really did look incredible, and I did enjoy giving her compliments and telling her how much I loved her. During this time, she also talked to me about getting a part-time job. It was not so much about the money, but more of a way for her to get out of the house and stay involved. I told her that was a great idea and encouraged her to think about what she wanted to do, and to go for it. To my surprise, she got a job as a waitress and bartender at a restaurant right down the street from us. She has a degree in business but did not want to get a white-collar job. She thought the hours and responsibilities would be too much with our home and family, but this would get her up and moving. She would be able to earn some money for herself and feel like she was contributing. Plus, she said that she needed to work and talk with adults, and she felt this would get her out of her isolation at home. Once again, I told her that was great news, and she should go for it. Now, I noted earlier that my wife is an attractive woman. I should also add that she is a voluptuous woman and was looking really great with her level of fitness and weight loss. She has never had a problem with attracting interest from men, but she also has always been loyal to me, and I never had reason to doubt her. She started her job and was doing well. She worked 2-3 nights per week and usually worked on a Friday or Saturday. I was somewhat uncomfortable with her work outfits because she wore clothing that accentuated her figure. It was tasteful, but I admit that I wished she would be more conservative. She laughed at me on this and told me it was a great way to bring in more tips and perhaps her outfits would spur more romantic interest on my part. The owner of the restaurant was a good man and ran a good business. He was fair with his workers and his family also all worked there. His son, to be honest, was somewhat of an arrogant jerk. He had been born into wealth and made no bones about living a nice lifestyle. He was about the same age as my wife and I must admit he was a very good-looking guy. He was married but had no children yet. His wife is a lovely and wonderful person also. She also worked at the restaurant and handled the books. The son handled all of the catering and special events. At least, he was supposed to do that. My understanding is that he was somewhat lazy and constantly dumped his responsibilities off on his family and coworkers. What he really liked to do was lift weights, work out, drive around in his fancy car, live off his family, and basically talk and brag about how great he was with women. I am not sure how his wife dealt with all of this. He was admittedly a flashy guy, but the guy did not impress me in the least. I could tell from the first time I met him that he was not much more than a big mouth windbag. My wife several times had commented to me several times that the guy was very good looking in an exciting way, but he was an arrogant toe rag, and she could not stand him. But, she had to work with him and kept her mouth shut to get along. She did work with him on a consistent basis, and they then began to have some type of friendship forming. I was not overly concerned but did tell her that this guy was trouble, and she should be careful around him. During the next several months my wife did begin to act peculiar. She kept a close eye on her phone, claimed she had to work late, and began to be absent for long periods of time claiming that she was shopping or was running errands. She also began to ignore me to some extent and I also thought she was not as attentive to the kids as she had been in the past. My wife is a good mother, but she seemed to be impatient at this time and had no concern with turning over more of the responsibilities to me. It was a challenge since I also work full-time and am the primary breadwinner of the family. I did tell her of my concern, but she told me things were going okay and I was seeing problems where there were not any. One night my wife and I were alone, and it was fairly late. I made a move on her, and she shut me down cold. I asked her what the problem was and with that she started crying and shaking. I asked her what the problem was and then received the shock of my life. My wife told she had been seeing the owner's son for almost 6 months, the relationship had turned estimul, she loved him, we were done, and she was going to leave me to move in with him. She also told me that she had been deeply unhappy since the miscarriage and felt that something in our marriage had died. She needed a fresh start and she needed to be free to live her life. She also told me that she loved this guy, and he could make her happy. I was obviously pretty shook up and asked her to reconsider. She told me it was too late for that and would be moving in with her new boyfriend into an apartment they had secured. I asked her about the kids, and she told me that it would be best if they stayed with me in the house to maintain a good home and she would be there to see them. It is an understatement to say that I was absolutely shocked and flabbergasted at what had taken place. My wife told me that she did not understand the surprise since she thought I was well aware of her unhappiness with our marriage and the miscarriage had been the final nail in the proverbial coffin. I was not pleased when I learned who she had a relationship with. It is one thing to get the complete shafting from your wife and another to find out she was ditching you for a guy who was really a dirtbag. I do not want to make a generality, but there does seem to be some truth that so many women are attracted to guys like this. I am not sure if it was his looks, flashy lifestyle, or his big mouth. But, she apparently was interested in him and it took off from there. I was also shocked that she had been involved with him for 6 months without my knowing. They apparently had been having time in his car, the restaurant, hotels, his house, our home when nobody was there, etc. It was a real betrayal, and I was deeply hurt. But, I thought about what I would do and maintained my perspective and composure. What followed was several weeks of tears, sadness, cajoling, and really just a whole lot of crap. My family, and especially my dad, was furious and began saying terrible things about her. My wife's side of the family was also upset with the situation but did not display the same level of animosity and bitterness that my side did. I actually had to intervene with my father and ask him to stop with the vitriolic insults against my wife. She was still the mother of his son's children and he needed to show her respect as a grandfather. My father actually agreed and commended me on my approach to this whole situation. I told him that I did not believe there was any benefit for me by seeking revenge on my soon-to-be ex-wife. She was the mother of my children, and I would need to have an amicable relationship with her for the sake of our kids. Do not get me wrong. I would have loved to be in Saab but thought long and hard about it. I think that I made the correct choice and in retrospect would have done the same thing. As I said, it was a rough couple of weeks, but she did move out and into an apartment with this guy. She did see her children and try to be active in their lives. I also felt terrible for the wife of this guy, and she was mortified by what had taken place. She did leave the restaurant to get another job and did file for divorce. I would see her in the local grocery store on occasion and always wished her well. She was originally from Pennsylvania and eventually moved back to her home. I understand she did get remarried to a solid man and now has a good life and children. I wish her only the best. There is no question in my mind that her splitting with this guy is the best thing that ever happened to her. The divorce itself went smoothly. She did get some money out of me due to the division of assets. I did agree to pay some alimony support for a short period of time, which I think ended at 6 months. To me it was a cheap way to get out of the situation. In fact, I probably would have agreed to any financial demand she would have made in order to be done with the situation. I was retained as the primary custodial parent, and she had 50-50 visitation. I told her that she was always free to stop and see her children. She did do that on many occasions and things appeared to be somewhat stable. I also think she liked to see me when she came to visit the kids, but maybe that was wishful thinking on my part. My wife did not make a lot of money, but did make a small child support payment each month. To her credit, she did her best and never missed a payment when it came to her children. In retrospect, there is no doubt in my mind that my wife was going through some type of personal crisis due to the miscarriage and the aftermath of it. I am not some great prize, but there is no way my wife in her right mind would have done what she did. But, I was powerless and there was not much I could do. The day we signed the divorce papers to make it final was surreal. Things had been amicable, but it was still tough. We met at her attorney's office, and it was a sad affair for me. I was saddened that she seemed so happy about the situation, and she was there with her dirtbag boyfriend. She almost seemed giddy about it, which really shocked me. We had been together for many years and had a family together. This was the only time I ever felt like she disrespected me during the whole divorce, but I let it roll off because there was nothing left to prove. The marriage was over, and we needed to move forward. When I signed the papers, I did see some regret in her eyes. I do think she had a look of shock on her face since I remember what I said to her. I had thought about it and had already decided what I was going to say. I must admit that I am proud of what I said and how well it came off. I am not an actor, but on this day, I did have a flair for the dramatic. I had written it down and practiced it until I had it down, and this is what I said. I am of course sad about this. I thought we had a good life and were a good team. I apologize to you, if you think I failed you, because I was not able to bring you the happiness you wanted and you thought somebody else would give you a better chance at happiness. I do think the miscarriage had a lot more to do with this than we realize. When tragedies take place, people either get closer and stronger or there is separation and loss. I am sad and find it ironic that what should have been a happy experience for us is what destroyed us in the end. But, that is in the past now. I want you to have a happy life and we can work together to give our kids the happiest and most stable life we can. The room was quiet when I said this. Her face looked stark white, and I did see regret in her eyes. With that, I got up, shook her hand, wished her well, said goodbye, and her attorney told me he would send me a copy of the papers. Things went okay at first. She was living with this guy, but within several months chinks began to appear in their relationship. He apparently drank too much, was pretty much shiftless, lived off his family, and really was not much of a man. He also apparently had a wandering eye and was already lining up his next conquest. She was apparently a younger girl who worked in another restaurant, which was also owned by his father. Of interest is that I continued to order food from the original establishment. The owner would always greet me when I came in for my order and always had a look of embarrassment on his face. I would never stay in the place because that would have been awkward. My ex-wife was working there and was living with his son. If you toss in that he deserted his wife also, the owner was not pleased. He was a family man and told me once that he did not understand where he went wrong with his son. Of course, and to no surprise, things began to go downhill with this new exciting power couple. They were fighting all of the time and things were not going well for my ex-wife. I think me ex-wife was seeing that perhaps I was not that bad of an option and things are not always greener on the other side. With me she had a solid man who put her and the kids first. I was a good husband and perhaps she had made a really poor decision. She did call me several times to lament about her life, but I told her that I was not the person to talk with about this. She answered that I had been her best friend and she could always talk to me. I told her that had been true, but things had changed, and I did not feel comfortable being part of the discussion and she needed to work things out on her own with her new partner. I did not want to be involved in her relationships. She did agree, but I think that I could sense some hurt and regret in her voice when she hung up after I told her this. One night she had the kids over at her apartment with her dirtbag boyfriend to have a sleepover and watch some movies. That evening I had an upset call from her. Apparently, this guy had drank too much and was frustrated that the kids did not want to watch one of his shows. I am not sure what the show was, but the kids apparently had no interest. So, he got mad and slapped my youngest daughter because he thought she was being snotty. This was a hard slap and left a mark on her cheek. So, I get a call and went right over there. My first inclination was to call the cops and maybe I should have. But, I did go over there to get my kids. I took my kids and left. I told him that I heard anything else from him about this, my next call would be to the cops and then he would have real trouble. I do admit that I got some pleasure out of telling my ex-wife, and, so this is what you left me for? She did not say anything but did hang her head. I think she was ashamed at what had taken place. I am not sure if that meant she regretted the divorce, but I do think she realized what she had done and was regretful. Lo and behold, later that night I get a knock at the door and there she is sobbing and was very upset. I did let her come in and she told me that she had broken up with her boyfriend and wanted to come home. Now, I thought long and hard for several minutes and told her that I loved her, and we had history, but I could not do that. With everything that had taken place, I did not think it was a good idea for her to come back and there were just too many sad memories. I would never have left the mother of my children alone on the street. She did come in and she did call her parents. I took her there to stay. My former father-in-law met me at the door and thanked me. He told me that I had always been a good man and a good husband. He appreciated that I had put the kids first and did look after the safety of his daughter as my ex-wife. I did tell him that I would always love his daughter. Maybe things did not go the way we wanted, but I would not let harm come to her. To this day, I am proud of what I did on this night and what I decided to do to protect my kids and in the end my ex-wife. She lived at her parents' house for about a year until she could back on her feet. She did get a good job and moved into her own place. She was always a good mother, and her old vitality and spark returned. It was not perfect, but there was some sense of normalcy. She did have a string of relationships that did not go anywhere, and I think she was taken advantage of several times. Several times she would say to me that I was the best relationship she ever had and nobody else could compare. Maybe that was a lot of cheap talk, but I did like to hear it. All that being said, nothing romantic happened again between us, and I retained a cordial and respectful relationship with her. I could have been with her again if I wanted, but would not take that step. In my heart, I wanted to, but was basically scared of being hurt again. During this time, I had dated several women, but nothing serious from the relationship perspective. Several of them wanted more from me, but I was not going to go there. I was focused on work, my kids, and had really no interest in another marriage or a long-term relationship. There were just too many bad memories, and I decided that going solo was the best route for me. The years did fly by. My kids did well, attended college, had good careers, got married, and started families. I would see my ex-wife at family events on a regular basis. She would always ask me if I was seeing anybody, and it would always come around if there was still a chance for us to get back together. I always told her no, because in life some things stick, and you cannot go away from them. She would always look sad and told me that her decision to leave me was the worst decision and mistake she ever made. She told me there is not a day that goes by when she does not think about what if. She also told me it was especially hard for her at events like weddings, birthday parties, and other family events. She told me that the toughest days for her from this perspective was at the funerals for her mother and father when they died. She was greatly saddened when she saw me there, but I was not there as her husband and partner. She knew that I was a strong man and good husband to her. But, on these days she felt alone and had felt great regret. She also felt this way at the weddings for both of our children. She thought they would have been great days that we would have shared together. She asked me if I ever felt the same way. My answer has been that the experience was sad for me, but I decided to move forward and not look back. I always felt that her regret was ironic, since she was so sure that true happiness was with a new boyfriend. We are now pushing 60, and I was thinking about hanging it up at work and moving somewhere warm, or at least for the cold months. My kids support me and do love their mother. The last time I talked to my ex-wife before moving was at a birthday party for one of our grandchildren. She asked to speak to me alone, and we stepped outside. She then became very emotional and upset. She always thought there was a chance that we would get back together. My moving away would signify the absolute end, and that she had experienced a lifetime of regret for having failed as a wife. I told her so many years had gone past and that she should not feel that way. I had nothing but respect and admiration for her. She then asked if she could potentially come visit me. I told her that I did not know, but would think about it. I admit that every single time I looked into her beautiful green eyes, my heart would melt. On this day she looked exceptionally beautiful to me, and the years had been very kind to her. On this day, I must admit that regardless of what had taken place before, I never felt more intense love for her than I did on this day at this moment. At this point in my life, I thought that maybe I would welcome having a relationship with her again. I would not get remarried, but what did I really have to lose at this point? She did make me happy at one time, and my love for her had never went away. At this point of time in our lives, maybe we can go forward. Update: I have been living in the Carolinas for the winter, and my ex-wife did come to see me. Crazy, I know, but all of the old feelings are still there. She stayed at my place, and we went and did many things together. I am pleased to report that maybe we are older, but learn that we still do well together with that special time. She was there for a weekend, but it stretched into 2 weeks and then into a month. One night she started to cry and sob because of what happened literally years ago. She told me that the past several weeks had brought her great happiness, and she was so sorry for what had happened. She told me that she constantly thought about what if, and if she had wasted her life looking for some type of utopian relationship that cannot exist. I told her that was all in the past, and maybe the time had come for us to move on and reconsider having a future together. I told her that I always loved her, my feelings for her had never died, and maybe she would like to come down and be with me permanently. I told her that I was not ready for marriage again, but did it really make a difference at this point in our lives? She agreed, actually never left my home, and things have been going great. The kids had a look of absolute shock on their faces when we told them, but they were also very happy for us. My youngest daughter, though, told me she was not really surprised because she knew that my love for her mother had never died, and she had a feeling that things were not over. Some people reading this may think I am crazy for doing this again after so many years, but at this point in our lives there is only love and respect. What happened so many years ago is in the past. Now, when I see my wife and I admit that I always considered her to be my wife, I only feel love and affection. I think things will get even better and hopefully we will have good years ahead as we head into old age. She really made a bad decision, but that is in the past. I think we both face the consequences, but I look forward to life and moving forward. Perhaps it is hokey, but one thing is important to me. I always thought we were writing a book together but was saddened that we would never get a chance to finish it. I am pleased that we now have another chance to finish writing that book and including the final chapters. Would my wife cheat again? I do not think she would at this stage of our lives. But, age and experience has shown me that all people are a mixed bag. There is good and bad in all of us and one action or decision does not make or break a person. I have regrets also. My regret is that I always loved my wife and I let sad feelings dictate what I decided to do. Maybe I should have just recognized the fact that she is a human being and made a bad decision. Perhaps I should have given this a shot earlier and things might have been better. I do think about what if also, but I'm glad we have this second chance. With that, let me conclude and hopefully I have a perspective that some of you have been able to consider. TLDR. This story is completely true and addresses how and why my wife cheated on me after a personal crisis. We then went through a divorce and does talk about my feelings and experiences over many years. Redditors' reactions. Redditor 1. I call bullshit, this is just a cheesy romance novel. Be more original. Op answer, hi, it is not malarkey and is true. It is quite a story but is true. I met my wife in 1988 after I got out of the service in 1987 and we got married in 1989. Our kids were born in 1991 and 1994. We had the miscarriage in 1996 and the formal divorce took place in 1997. I moved to South Carolina at the end of 2020 and my ex-wife came to see me about 3 months later. So far it has worked out. But, every word I wrote is true. Hopefully I did not come across as too cheesy, but I did want to give the history so people understand what I have done and that I am not too off on this one. First time I ever submitted anything to Reddit. I learned a lot, also the moderators kept pulling it down because I kept missing certain guidelines. Strange I know, but I have gotten a lot of good advice and much appreciated. Redditor 2, don't mind me just sitting in my office at work with tears strolling down my face. But it made my heart happy to read the outcome. I hope you guys have many healthy and happy years. Smiley face, smiley face. Redditor 3, I was reading this and was thinking duck that, don't get back with her, but in the end, there really was no right or wrong decision. Do what's right for you. You are right in that we are all human and all make mistakes. Hopefully it's a happy ending. Thanks for sharing. Redditor 4, I'm going to address the at 60 years of age part. You are not dead or dying. You could live another 40 years or more. Think of yourself at 40. Your entire life up until that point is the amount of time you still have in front of you. Don't sell yourself short and convince yourself that there is nothing in your future. You are only 60. Redditor 5, why you posted the same story 5 times today? Op answer, hi, first time I ever submitted anything to Reddit. I learned a lot, also the moderators kept pulling it down because I kept missing certain guidelines. I am not sure if I will post again since this is my story and it relates to this community. Strange I know, but I have gotten a lot of good advice and much appreciated. Redditor 6, thank you for sharing your story. I have a lot of bitterness and anger towards infidelity in general, and this post has let me see a few things in a different light. Wishing the best towards you and your family. Redditor 7, I've read this before, or ATLE something very similar to this here. And I still think you shouldn't get back together with the cheater. Op answer, hi, I think this situation is far more common than we think. A guy I worked with had a similar experience, but he was the cheater. It dealt with the death of his son in an auto accident. He could not handle it, a part of him died with his son, he could not come back, and started blaming his wife. I could not understand it, but he somehow put his grief on his wife. Then he got into this something is missing in my life approach and took up with another woman. I could not understand that one either. He gave up his wife of 20 plus years for a person he had met for one night on a business trip. He also made a bad move, got divorced, remarried, and divorced again in less than 5 years. I had lunch with him about 2 weeks ago and was shocked when he told me that he is also dating his first ex-wife again. One thing I have learned is that some people have a very hard time when dealing with really traumatic situations. Instead of facing it, they try to block it by thinking they can hide from it. I do not think that works, my opinion. I appreciate the comments and your time. Redditor 8, if I was you I would have done my best to find somebody else. Even if it was an escort. Op answer, hi, I did date a number of women and do not claim to have lived my life as a monk after my divorce. I did fine but was busy with work and my kids. At that time also, most of the single women my age 35 plus at that time were also divorced with kids and family drama of their own. I had a couple of experiences at that time with dating that I think justified my approach. I was not going to bring women home to the house with my kids there if I was not serious about the person. I dated some really nice women, but I did not want go to the next level. Maybe I was being selfish, but I just did not want to deal with it, so I never got too serious even when I had the chance to. I would be lying also if I said that my past feelings for my ex-wife did not have some impact. I just did not want to take that step for something more serious. I felt that I had already went down that path and got hosed, so why do it again? It is different nowadays. I wish back then I could have went on a website, posted my photo, and swiped to find somebody interested. It was a different time. Maybe not better, but was just different in regard to relationships, my opinion of course. Redditor 9, wow. This should be a movie. Very well written. I'm divorced so it definitely hits me hard. Thanks for sharing. Redditor 10, after this long I guess the memory of the pain she gave you disappeared, and maybe I hold a grudge too long, but I don't think I could be as accepting and passive about all of this as you were at every turn. And as for allowing her back into your life, I guess if it works for you and makes you happy, but I don't think I could have accepted her back like you did. There's bad decisions, and then there's utter disrespect and contempt for someone else's feelings, like she showed. You were also mourning that miscarriage, but she trampled over you in some bid for a childish expectation of freedom. It's subjective, you're not me, we obviously think very differently, and so I'll just wish you well. Op answer, thanks, good comments and much appreciated. Do not get me wrong, I was very upset but needed to keep it together because of my kids. I had spent some time in the military and had seen a lot of divorces. A lot of the guys that had trouble with the divorce process was because they could not keep their cool, got upset, and then did something that created even more trouble. I saw what had happened due to this and kept my cool. I was recalled to active duty for the first Gulf War and I was surprised how many guys got shafted by their wives when they were deployed. I did lose my temper one time and it was due to that stupid phone she had. We got a flip phone, they were very new at that time, and cost a bundle. We paid for that dumb phone, and at the time I did not even know how to use it. She told me that it was for safety and security, but the reality was she wanted it to talk with her new chum. One time I heard it ringing right when she first told me she wanted out, and I tossed it on the floor when she left the room. The darn thing pretty much was destroyed. I plead no knowledge of where it was. My wife looked for that thing for 2 days and then decided she had lost it. I know there is a lot of context here, but she was in a dark place and did something I know she regretted. Redditor 11, enjoyed reading this work of fiction. Op answer, hi, not a work of fiction. I never thought of myself as a writing kind of person. I am, or was, an industrial engineer and I did not do a lot of writing. The last time I took a writing course was Rhetoric 101 in school. Maybe my story has some value. I did not think about it that way, but if you enjoyed what happened, maybe I should give it a shot. I am semi-retired and do some independent consulting, so I have the time. Weird to say, but this experience had a cathartic impact on me. I never wrote about what happened to me or posted it in something like Reddit. People are very kind and I do appreciate all the comments. Op comment, thanks, I really appreciate the comments and advice that I have been given. It means a lot to get so many kind words from so many people that I do not know, but it means a great deal. I am doing fine with my ex-wife and we are doing well. It has been so many years, but our relationship restarted and we are moving forward with our lives. Pretty amazing since my story literally took place over decades. I think a lot of the reviewers thought that I just forgot the whole situation and did not stand up for myself. I did stand up for myself and we both lived separate lives for many years. But, we had a family together and I had to be civil with her. I still think that was the right move for me to take. I did not note it in my story above, but one of the most impactful situation for us took place when I was recalled back to active duty to serve in Iraq in 2004-2005. I of course was not happy with the recall since I had served my time on active duty and spent another 18 years in the reserve. I thought that I was through with my service time, but I had made my commitment and had to meet my obligations. My ex-wife was very scared for me at the time. I had also been recalled back to active duty for the first Gulf War and she was aware of what I would be up against. She tried to talk to me about our past relationship before I left, but I just did not need to deal with that kind of drama. But, my kids were very important to me and I knew that she would take good care of them. During my deployment, my ex-wife probably had written to me at least 20 times and had sent me several packages. At the time, I did not need to deal with her drama and I had to keep my mind straight. There had also been a group picture of my unit in a news magazine and I was in the photo also. It was rough living and I did not look like the epitome of cleanliness and health in the photo. Apparently this photo moved her when she saw it and was very scared for me. Obviously, it was a tough time for me, but I just did not have the time or desire to deal with issues that would distract me. As a result, I never opened or read one single letter from her. I tossed all of her letters and the packages right into the trash and kept all thoughts about her out of my mind. When I came home I did see my ex-wife at a family event and she told me that she was surprised that I never wrote her back or at least sent her a note, thanking her for the cookies and cake that she sent me. I did tell her straight out that I never read anything she sent me and I tossed the packages she sent without opening them. I told her at the time that we had been through for years and I did not need to have any drama with her in my life. We needed to work together for our kids, I would be civil to her, would look to make sure she had help with our kids, made sure she was protected, but I had no interest in a relationship with her. I noted earlier that she looked regretful when I signed the divorce paperwork, but I think what I told her on this day completely stunned her. She told me later that this moment really shook her. Her ex-husband was deployed to a very tough place and he literally did not want to hear from her and could not be bothered to even look at what she sent. She told me that this really shook her and made her think about the long-time consequences of what had happened. Why I am saying this? Many of the commenters appear to think that I was just sitting at home and lamenting what had happened and was just waiting for her to get back with me. That was not the case, but I do think there is some value in letting people know this aspect of what happened. Redditor 13, hello, and thank you for your submission. Please take a moment to review the rules listed in our sidebar. Specifically, what constitutes moral judgment, and what this subreddit can and cannot give advice on. For further guidance, please see our wiki. Please note that this does not mean your post is removed. This is merely a reminder to review our rules. This is a bot message. I cannot respond to any comments. Please modmail us with any questions. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit message compose. 2 equals our relationship advice if you have any questions or concerns. Redditor 14, thank you for sharing your story. It was captivating. Send you all good wishes for this chapter of your life. There will be ups and downs, I hope you will survive them all. One question about remarrying, does it have anything with not wanting to remingle your finances? Op answer, hi, not really. There are some impacts of course, but deals more with the age issue at this point. Our kids are going to get eventually whatever we have anyway. I am doing fine financially, but the money is not my main concern. I kind of thought, what difference does it make at this point in my life? We were married and divorced but are back together now. At this point it really does not make a difference. My wife and I have talked about getting married by a pastor again in a church, more for emotional reasons, but not in a legally binding marriage at the town hall with a marriage license. A friend of mine did that with his new wife after his first died. It was nice and it did make me think. I am not sure what point a piece of paper has at this point. I understand that I am talking out of both sides of my mouth at this point. So, maybe the answer at this point is really clear as dirt with a yes, no, or maybe. Redditor 15, oh man. Thank you for that. I found out about my husband's affair 6 months ago, and a lot of our issues started after the loss of a pregnancy. I'm in tears reading your story. It's so sad yet so uplifting. All the best to you. Redditor 16, I think this is called maturity. Redditor 17, this was a beautiful story, whether true or false. Redditor 18, why would you continually visit the restaurant where your ex and affair partner worked and chat with the owner about your failed marriage? Work on your storytelling skills. Clearly, you haven't ever gone through infidelity. Do more research on your writing topic next time. Op answer, thanks, but I have, and the story is true. I guess that I did not see it as that weird. I have been going to the place for years, and that was before my whole deal. The food is great and I always liked the pizza and lasagna. No way I was giving that up. I knew the owner for years and I would drive past his house all the time and always waved at him. I also saw him at the grocery store, around town, school and sporting events because he would come to watch his grandkids also. I did not hang out in the restaurant. I would simply phone in my order and go to the takeout window. I did not see it as a big deal. I agree it would have been weird if I went into the place, sat at a table, and had my ex-wife wait on me. I finally did quit going there because he retired and sold the place. It turned into some type of Korean barbecue place and the food was not all that great. I appreciate the comments and your time. Op comment, I continue to get a lot of messages asking to see how we are doing. Maybe I just needed some moral support, but I feel a lot better about my actions and decisions after all of the kind messages and comments. Many commenters thought I was crazy for getting back with her, but everybody did express support for my final decision. I did not think posting on Reddit would have made a difference, but I think the comments made me think. I appreciate all of your time and empathy. My status is that things are still going very well and I have no complaints. I am not claiming perfection, but we are doing well as a couple and are very happy. The biggest issue we run into is my wife continues to lament about her choices from over 30 years ago. I told her the past is the past at this point, and I really do not want to relive what happened in 1997-1998. We had a great family, ran into some problems, but things are going well now. But she still feels that she has to continue proving herself to me, and I told her that is no longer important. She knows of my love for her and I am looking to the future. She also wants to show me that she has total transparency. I told her that I have no interest in checking her phone, social media, etc. She understands, but for some reason still feels she has to prove herself. It is not a big deal, but does come up on a regular basis. That situation is also getting better as time goes on and she is more secure in our relationship. The other question or comment is about the night the guy slapped my one daughter. The question is, did I really just get my kids and then leave without doing anything other than making a snide comment to my ex-wife? I also had a few comments sent my way that I was a wimp and coward for not doing something to this guy. Okay, I admit that I left something out and the situation had more drama to it than I originally noted. I noted earlier that my first inclination was to call the cops and maybe I should have. But I did do something and this guy learned he was not as flashy and tough as he thought he was. Do not get me wrong. The guy was very good looking and was in shape. But he was not a large man by anybody's standard. I should note that I am a large and strong man with years of military experience and know how to take care of myself. I should not laugh, but what I did to him does make me smile. I will include the rest of the story on this incident since I have had some comments tossed my way suggesting that I was a wuss. I am a lot bigger and stronger than this guy regardless of how many weights he lifts. So, I took him by the neck with my left hand and grabbed his right hand. I then proceeded to work him over pretty good with his own hand while telling him at the same time, "Hey, why are you hitting yourself?" I had seen this done in the military one time, and that is where I got the idea. It was pretty humiliating for him. I then made a snide comment to my wife, and then took my kids and left. This is where I then told him that if I heard anything else from him about this, my next call would be to the cops and then he would have real trouble. But The one thing to remember is that a call to the cops would have caused a lot of trouble for my wife. She was a good mother, but had gotten herself tied up with a dirt bag. I really did not want to cause problems for my wife. Heck, she was at my house later that night anyway. But, I should note this is probably the one thing that really upsets my wife if I bring it up. We can discuss other things rationally, but this incident causes her to get very upset and almost hysterical. It has been decades, but she has a hard time accepting that this guy hit her daughter and she could not stop him. I mentioned the incident one time when she originally came down to see me. It was an entire night of crying, shaking, and apologies. Obviously, this is not something I want to experience again, so I have not mentioned it again and have no interest in doing so. Redditor 20, man, I can see you didn't ever stop loving her. But she certainly stopped loving you at one point and had no respect for you. Even to go as far as inviting him into your home and God knows what kind of shameful things he was saying about you and your wife agreeing to every word. If you're that type of guy to look past that, then you do, man. I do commend how you handled the situation in regards to your kids, but to accept her again after all this time. No, man, and since you have, at least she should see a IC to fix what's broken within her. Lastly, something might happen and suddenly you will get a rush of all these bad feelings from the past. That'll be due to you rug sweeping what she did all those years ago. So do get the complete story out of her no matter how bad it is, so you can both move forward and put it behind you.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe.